welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Trinity Continuum Steam Wars. Yes, I am back because we are entering our final week with this backer kit campaign, and I would love it. If you have been on the fence, if you've been unsure until now, if you are interested in backing Trinity Continuum Steam Wars and haven't yet done so, please consider it. There is only 1 week or so left to go, and we would love to hit some stretch goals before that time runs out. Now, I said a little while ago I was going to make a video about the stations in Trinity Continuum Steam Wars. What are stations? Well, being on board a steam rig, which is one of the central parts of play in Trinity Continuum Steam Wars, though not all of it, this is also a game that allows for espionage, adventure, diplomacy, as well as life back home, reconnaissance, all sorts of things. Because you have all the roles for it, I've already gone through them in a separate video. But when you're on board the rig, which is a central part of play, your characters aren't all clumped up in one area. This isn't a small vehicle. This is a lumbering iron giant. They're not all lumbering. Some of them move fast. But let's call it a lumbering iron giant. Your war rig is your home. It is your castle. It's your tank. It is a weapon. And it is your armor. And depending on where your character is, they're going to fulfill a different function. Now, during the course of play, parties on board a rig, as I say, they're not all going to be in one place. There are multiple places in the traditional rig setup where your characters might occupy, and different characters are going to experience different enhancements, or indeed be able to purchase specific tricks. If you're familiar with the StoryPath Ultra system, you will know that if you achieve, more hits than you need on your action, so let's say you're trying to accomplish a task, you're trying to get the rig to move, you're trying to get it to move fast, and therefore you roll your technology and dexterity to get that piston moving as quickly as possible. You do it, you only get 1 hit, well, maybe it's a difficulty of 1, you've managed it, done. But let's say you get more hits. Maybe you get 2 or 3 or 4 hits. Well, StoryPath Ultra is a system that rewards additional hits. It never says to you, well done for rolling above what you were aiming for. It doesn't get you anything extra. I went into last video about the Steam Dice and what you can use those for. But even without Steam Dice, you can use those additional hits to buy tricks. Tricks are special abilities that are specific to the situation that you are in. And every single posting, every single station on the rig has different tricks. As an example, if you're in the head cab, you have a bird's eye view of the battlefield, the surrounding terrain. It's from that position that crew members can assess other combatants on the field, develop battle strategies, guide the rig out of danger, or steer straight into it, of course, because you don't always succeed. The head cab is the primary hub for communication with the other rigs, with military escorts, and allies in the vicinity. Some rigs have radio equipment, although it's pretty rudimentary, while others rely on older methods, even semaphore, flag signals, to Morse code, to good old-fashioned shouting. You're likely to find characters of the captain role, the envoy, the navigator, or the pilot in the head cab. And each one of them, if they are occupying the head cab, gains an enhancement on their actions. So, for instance, a captain will gain an enhancement on actions to inspire your crews to action. A pilot will gain enhancement on movement actions during combat. What is an enhancement? Well, if you're familiar with StoryPath Ultra, you'll know already, but if you're not, an enhancement is an additional hit that applies after you roll even 1 hit. So, you have your dice pool, you've got 5 dice, let's say. If you rolled a 1, 1, 1, 1, 8, well, 4 of those aren't hits, but 1 of them is. If the difficulty was 2, right now you're not hitting it. But if you had that enhancement, let's say you're trying to inspire a demoralized troop, you're a captain, you're in the head cab, congratulations, that enhancement now means you've got 2 hits, which means you knock down the difficulty, you have now succeeded. The head cab is, of course, a very important part of the rig, but not the only important part. You can also buy tricks there, such as evasive maneuvers. Each hit that you spend on this trick, because you can spend up to 3, increases your rig's defense. A clear path, you know the safest way forward, and reduces, I should say, any difficulty on piloting actions, that kind of thing. We move down from the head to the chest, which is the typical location for, I would suggest, the engineer and the envoy. The envoy will be everywhere, I will note, because the envoy is a runner. This character will be moving throughout the rig constantly. And the chest is the suit of armor. It is the furnace. It is the beating heart of the rig. Of course it is. While it is center mass, it is also the part that can be most easily armored without interfering with movement of limbs or firing of weapons and so on. So there'll be stokers constantly shoveling coal into furnaces, adjusting their exertion to control the rig's speed and other needs. The engineers here will keep their eyes on steam pressure, listen for any sounds that sound like the rig outside of the rig's usual rhythm, that kind of thing. The clanking and hissing of being inside a rig becomes quite, I guess, musical to an engineer. They know how a healthy rig should sound. And in the larger rigs, the back of this chest compartment may contain the boarding hold, because rigs have boarding parties on them as well. And so they will be waiting there, in their barracks, as it were, waiting to swing across to other rigs. Now, just as with the head cab, engineers and envoys in this location will gain enhancements for certain actions. An engineer, for example, will gain +1 enhancement to actions dedicated to diagnosing or fixing a problem on the rig. An envoy will gain their enhancement on social actions to encourage or inspire the crew, therefore acting as a vessel for the captain. Now, once again, there are various tricks you can purchase if you are in the chest during combat, and these include the gear song. It only costs 1 hit, but the engineer can place their ear to a panel to hear the rig's inner workings and gain an additional insight into any investigation they might be conducting on the rig's health, for example. But there's lots more, and this is what the trend is throughout all of this rig component video. Every single location, from the head to the chest to the arms, where engineers and gunners make their home. Now, engineers aren't here for the same reason they're in the chest. There is little to stoke in the arms, but they are responsible for operating the booms. What are the booms? Well, sometimes you get in close combat with a rig. You are swinging arms and demolishing your enemy, and you can do that as an engineer here. Likewise, the gunner, well, their role kind of speaks for itself. Those guns tend to be mounted on shoulders. These are going to be cramped quarters, no doubt, when compared to the head cab or the torso. But it is up to them to keep the rig balanced and moving smoothly from this position. It has massive crane arms that need to be operated from this place. And yeah, they're not just smacking into things, they can also pick things up if you've got a rig with finer motor control. The rig's arms are undoubtedly a destructive force and one of its primary weapons. As mentioned before, engineers and gunners, this is their place. They will gain enhancements. Engineers, for instance, will gain an enhancement if they're here for actions manipulating the rig's arm movement. Gunners will be for using demolition, using the rig arms. And again, it enables the purchase of tricks with additional hits, such as crushing for 3 hits. You do deal additional damage, essentially anything that you have got held in your claws. Surgical precision, if you're holding a steam die. Some of these require you to hold steam dice or vent steam dice in order to purchase these tricks. So again, there's permutations within the system that make it nice and flexible, nice and versatile. We move on to the legs, which is where the engineers and navigators also are present. These ambulators, of course, keep the rig moving. They control the ambulation levers to lift, move, pivot, place the rig's massive boots, and to keep the rig's stride smooth. Both ambulators need to work together to establish a rhythm. If the rig staggers along, it can very easily fall over and the rest of the crew's lives get a lot tougher. The captain will be bellowing down from on high to ask what the hell is going on down there. This is maybe the most, I guess, the part of the rig crew that is most underrated or underrepresented, because everyone assumes that once you're in battle, you're kind of standing still and just letting loose with your cannon. That isn't the case. The legs are just as important as every other part, because the legs need to get you out of trouble if trouble gets too hot. Engineers gain an enhancement down here for controlling the rig's ambulation, navigators for traversing difficult terrain. Again, you could use a Vent 2 Steam Dice trick here for Mighty Leap, allowing you to spring into the air. Imagine how terrifying that would be on a battlefield, see an iron giant springing in the air towards you. It allows you to move additional range bands. Now, finally, then you have the guns exclusively. The only role who is present on the guns is the gunner. The gunner wouldn't allow anyone else to be present here. They control the rig's weapons, manage its munitions, choose which targets to aim for. They might be told by the captain, but ultimately it's the gunner's say-so that makes it. Gunners will also draw fire on their position, because if they know where the enemy is by their firing upon them, they can then fire back. So it's a very risky position. This is the position next to operating the furnaces, I would suggest, that's the most vulnerable on the rig, but also, for us role players who love combat, the most fun. And here, gunners gain +1 enhancement on ranged combat attacks using the rig's weaponry. Again, tricks you can purchase, including drawing fire if you hold a steam die, or explosive ordnance if you vent a steam die, so your ammunition upon firing explodes, because this condensed coal is a volatile substance. Now, every single one of these rig positions is vital. And so if you have a party of 5 player characters, of course, you'd have one in the head, one in the chest, one in the arms, one in the legs, and one in the guns. But you can also put story guide characters in these places as well. This is a really well thought out system that enables a different style of play during the course of your role-playing game. Things can get really mechanical, but in a fun way, I like to think. Especially as you're coordinating what you're doing, either radioing each other or speaking to each other through tubes, and if the initiative isn't in the order you want, things can get confusing, but fun at the same time. Anyway, I've spoken enough about the different stations on board a steam rig. What I would love for you to do, if you haven't already, is please do check out the backer kit campaign for Trinity Continuum Steam Wars. We are in our final week, or shortly entering it, and we would love your support. Let's unlock some stretch goals and fight bravely in the second Steam War. Thank you very much for watching.